Confidence is notorious as being crucial to success, especially the success of people in larger roles. And yet, most people never fully step into their greatest expression of confidence. So this was always something I wondered. How is it that some people seem to accomplish major success so easily, and yet others never reach their fullest potential? I looked into it further, and in this video, I'm going to break down 3 reasons why confidence is worth developing, 3 reasons why people never step fully into their confidence, and finally, 3 steps that everyone can take to bring more confidence into their lives. To begin, the first scientific backed reason why confidence is worth developing is confidence directly improves performance. Now, I know this might sound too good to be true, but Albert Bandura, a Canadian/American psychologist, looked into this with scientific studies, and he actually coined the term self-efficacy, which describes somebody's belief in their own capacity to organize and execute actions to manage future situations. Essentially, one's ability to believe in themselves as being capable of doing what they need to do. So here's why this term is important. Bandura discovered across decades of studies, including meta-analyses, that higher efficacy or higher belief in one's own ability to succeed will predict greater persistence after failure, better strategy when performing tasks, and higher goal setting, all of which led to higher performance outcomes. This directly shows that by developing confidence, you will get more of what you want out of life. If I knew the first point was going to be this strong, then I wouldn't have needed to research 2 more. But anyway, here we go. Number 2 says, confidence reduces stress. Okay, I take that back. This one's pretty good too. In stress psychology, using the Lazarus and Folkman framework and Blashowitz challenge threat model, studies showed when we face a stressful situation, our brain asks the question, do I have resources to handle this? If the answer is no, there will be a threat response created. But if the answer is yes, there will be a challenge response. So what does this mean exactly? It shows that lower confidence creates more threat states, and those come with higher cortisol releases, increased vascular resistance, and narrowed attention spans. It also impairs your working memory, whereas higher confidence creates more challenge states, and that leads to a more efficient cardiovascular response. So this directly shows a real-world effect, explaining how confident people perform better in interviews. They can stay calmer in social situations, and they can think more clearly under pressure. It's not because they feel less fear, it's because their body is in a different physiological state. What do you think? Will number 3 top that one? So the final scientific backed reason why confidence is worth developing is confidence actually drives action through a system called approach versus avoidance system. According to behavioral neuroscience and reinforcement learning, research shows that confidence shifts behavior towards approach motivation instead of avoidance tactics. So this involves the brain's reward system and its dopamine pathways, as well as the expectancy value theory, which says that when you act, you can expect success plus a specific valuable outcome. So without going too deep into the actual biology around that, this mechanism describes when confidence is high, you can expect a higher probability of success, and this leads you to taking more action, leading to more of the results you want. Whereas if your confidence is low, you will likely expect failure, which deters you from even trying in the first place, effectively guaranteeing failure. But here is where this gets even crazier. There's actually a compounding loop that gets formed from this process, because confidence leads to action, which leads to experience, and then skill development, which inevitably develops, you guessed it, even more confidence. This is a self-sustaining loop. So even a little bit of confidence will go on to develop greater levels of confidence over time. Now, I want you to leave in the comments which of the first 3 reasons why confidence is worth developing was your favorite, and discuss with others below, because, maybe that is your first step to developing real confidence, is just having a conversation with others, developing your ability to express your opinions and share them verbally with others. For part 2, The first major scientific backed reason why people don't step into confidence is avoidance behavior rewires the brain to stay unconfident. This is heavily supported by multiple studies in the behavioral psychology field and also research on anxiety and avoidance learning. Avoidance reduces anxiety in the short term at the cost of reinforcing it in the long term. By avoiding something uncomfortable, your anxiety will drop, and then your brain learns avoidance is equal to safety, which strengthens your fear circuitry. The neurological mechanism at play is that the amygdala, which is responsible for your brain's emotional processes, especially fear, reward, and threat evaluation, will become reactive to perceived threats. The prefrontal cortex, the part directly behind the forehead, which governs high-level cognitive and emotional controls, which is known as reasoning, planning, or decision-making, all executive functions, will have less regulatory control. Gradually facing your fears reduces your fear responses over time. The second reason why we don't naturally develop confidence is because self-efficacy, the term we looked at earlier to develop belief in one's own self, can also become a self-fulfilling loop of lack of self-belief. According to the same studies from before with Albert Bandura, self-efficacy predicts behavior before anything physical actually happens. So lower self-efficacy leads to lower goal setting, reduced effort, faster quitting, and avoidance of challenges. You believe you won't succeed, and then you put in less effort, performance suffers, and then this is the evidence that proves you were right, leading to even more self-doubt. The bottom line of this is that people don't step into confidence because their current belief system filters reality in a way that keeps them stuck. The final reason is that fear of social judgment is biologically wired into us and overestimated within our system. Science rooted in social psychology and evolutionary biology shows humans are highly sensitive around social evaluation due to survival history. In the past, within tribal communities, rejection meant a loss of group benefit, and therefore a significantly lower chance of survival. To this day, this means that the brain treats social risk as high stakes. Our bodies literally respond biologically to social threat by activating similar brain regions as those associated with actual physical pain. Also, people consistently overestimate how much others notice them, following something known as the spotlight effect. A scientist known as Thomas Gilowich and Kenneth Swirsky in the early 2000s experimented by having participants wear embarrassing t-shirts. The researchers found that observers noticed these details far less often than the wearers of the shirts assumed, illustrating an inflated sense of personal visibility. Having these internal tendencies ultimately leads to overthinking simple actions, a greater hesitation in social or performance-based situations, and a desire to play it safe in order to avoid judgment. These three things stacked together show that avoidance trains fear, beliefs reinforce failure loops, and social fear exaggerates the stakes. Knowing all of this, we have a heightened reason to learn about what the three different steps everyone can take are to bring more confidence into their life. So here we go. Number 1 is perform cognitive reframing. Cognitive reframing is essentially spending time deliberately changing how you interpret a situation to improve self-esteem, resilience, and confidence by modifying thought patterns and emotional responses. Because we know that confidence is heavily influenced by the interpretation of events, not just the events themselves, we can use this to our advantage. Regardless of what happened in any given situation, we can choose to go back consciously and create a different interpretation that serves us instead of hindering us. An example of what this might look like is you can sit down for a few minutes and either close your eyes or even maybe journal. Then recall a situation that doesn't sit quite right with you because of some level of embarrassment that you feel around it. By going back into that experience and recalling it, you will probably notice immediately an emotional response will come up similar to what you experienced the first time, as if you are reliving it. Now, if you were to look into what actually happened in that situation that made you feel embarrassed, and then rather than judge yourself for it, but rather you come up with one or two possible scenarios that show the situation improved and provided benefit in somebody's life, then you can see that even in failure, a greater good is possible, and you can look at the situation more positively. For example, even if you hurt someone, you can see that this taught you a valuable lesson that you will do your best not to repeat. And more likely than not, that lesson actually improved how you show up in future relationships and also maybe help the other person set better boundaries. So instead of saying, I embarrassed myself, it can become that experience refined how I communicate and made me more aware. Same event, completely different internal outcome. And when you stack enough of these reframes, you quite literally start training your brain to work for you instead of against you. The number 2 thing that we can do is build confidence through controlled exposure. Now, this one is huge because earlier we talked about how avoidance can reinforce fear, and this is the exact opposite of that. Instead of avoiding the thing that makes you uncomfortable, you deliberately expose yourself to it, but in a controlled and manageable way. Not jumping straight into the deep end, but progressively stepping in. This is rooted in what's known as exposure therapy, and it's one of the most effective evidence-based ways to reduce anxiety and build confidence. Here's what that actually looks like in real life. If social situations make you anxious, you don't go speak on a stage tomorrow, but rather you start smaller. You make eye contact with somebody. You say a few more words than you normally would to somebody in the elevator. You initiate a short conversation at the grocery store. And then you build from there. Because what happens is when your brain starts updating its predictions, instead of saying this is dangerous, it will slowly become I can handle this. Then over time, what used to feel threatening will start to feel normal again. This is how real confidence is built. It's not by thinking your way into confidence, but by experiencing your way into confidence. The third thing we can do is create confidence goes to action, which goes to evidence loop. So this ties everything together. Earlier we talked about how confidence creates action, but the key is you don't actually need a lot of confidence to get this loop started. You just need enough. Because once you take action, even small action, you create evidence, and that evidence starts to challenge the old belief system. So instead of saying, I'm not confident in this, you now have, well, I actually did that one thing and it made a difference. That's the shift. Because confidence isn't built from affirmations alone. You can't just sit there and say these things, but you have to actually have reference points. Moments where you showed up and you actually made a difference and you handled something. Moments where you didn't collapse the way that you thought that you would. The goal here is very simple. Create more reference points, even if they're small, because small wins compound over time, and those small wins turn into a completely different identity. If we're to bring this all together, and you look at everything that we talked about today, it really comes down to this. Confidence isn't something you either have or don't have, it's something that you train. And we can reframe our thoughts by taking small, consistent actions and build real evidence that will show us that we have every right to feel confident and we are capable of believing in ourselves fully. If you're interested in more content like this, then thank you so much for watching. I would appreciate if you could like and subscribe and follow for more similar videos which help you work through the different anxiety and lack of self-belief that we have in our life. And if you're interested to go really deep, then I have one-to-one coaching program that specializes in building confidence for men and women over the course of 28 days. Thank you so much for watching. Believe in yourself today and have a beautiful rest of your day.